Okay, good afternoon, Honourable Ministers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zara Khan. I am the Director for Programs and Initiatives at the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat. On behalf of my Secretary General and on behalf of Honourable Minister Kristin Bowen, the host, we are here in the Australia Pavilion. It's a sincere honour and pleasure to welcome you all to this wonderful event that will discuss the Pacific priorities when it comes to COP28 and beyond COP28 in terms of the key issues that we'll be pursuing. I think it'll be remiss of me if we don't acknowledge the traditional owners of the land here in the United Arab Emirates, the wonderful facilities that the UAE government has provided to us and enabled us to have this wonderful gathering. Before we proceed, I would like to invite the Honourable Ministers who will be part of our panel discussion this afternoon to please kindly take their place on the stage. Please give them a hand. Just by way of introduction, we're very privileged and honoured to have our respective ministers from the Pacific region here with us. We have Honourable Minister Simon Watts, Minister for Climate Change from New Zealand. We have, please give him a hand. We have Honourable Minister Kristin Bowen, the Minister for Climate Change from Australia. We have the Honourable Minister Mona Ainui, the Minister for Natural Resources from Niue. And we have Minister Gustav Aitero, the Palau Minister for State. In order to get the proceedings underway, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to humbly request Minister Kristin Bowen to come to the stage and deliver his welcome remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Just some very, very brief words of warm welcome to you all from me. Welcome to the Australian Pavilion. I do want to acknowledge any First Nations Australian people who are here present and thank our First Nations people for their stewardship of our lands and waters and winds over millennia. And note that First Nations people need to be integral to our clean energy transition. Well, I'm very much looking forward to this forum with my joint ministers. There have been many events at this pavilion over the last week or so. I've only participated in a very small number of them because my main job here is behind closed doors in very difficult negotiations, but there are some that we've prioritised for me to come and be part of, and this is certainly one of them because there is nothing more important than working together with our Pacific family on the most important issues that we're dealing with this COP. So look forward to a nice discussion, and everyone's warmly welcome here at the Australian Pavilion.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think for all of us here at the COP, sometimes the Pacific voice can go unnoticed if we're not being heard. And these particular platforms are very useful for us, it's very important for us, and we're very grateful for the support from the Government of Australia, from the Government of New Zealand, that has enabled the Pacific region to have a wonderful Moana Pacific Pavilion next door and our delegation office upstairs, but also this particular pavilion. Please, can we give them a hand? Thank you very much for your support. But equally important is for us to get into the substantive issues of why we are here at COP in terms of climate change adaptation, mitigation, loss and damage, climate finance, a number of very important issues that we have been negotiating over the last 10 to 12 days. And so in terms of the first question to a very esteemed panel of ministers, and we'll give, don't often get the chance to direct ministers, so it's a very big privilege for me. So I'm going to give you only 3 minutes, ministers, if that's all right with you. Your first question is, could you highlight to all of us what your utmost priority is here at COP in terms of how we serve our people back home, but also in terms of the issues that we need to make progress on at this very important gathering. Perhaps Minister Watts, I think there's a roving mic that you can use, sir. Thank you.
Well, kia ora koutou and a very good afternoon. Well, for me, our government basically formed on Tuesday of this week. And so within 72 hours of our new government forming and being sworn in as a minister, we're here on the ground at COP. And I think if that doesn't send any signal other than this is a significant strategic and domestic priority for New Zealand, well, I'm not sure what does. But the primary purpose for me to answer that question is here to listen, in particular to the issues and concerns that we have with our Pacific neighbours. The Pacific is at the front line of the implications around climate implication, and that is not lost on us in New Zealand. And of course, New Zealand's also faced its fair share of storm devastation earlier this year with Cyclone Gabrielle. And so we are going through that process, as is many within our community, with large-scale devastation. And we know that that's going to increase as well. I think the word that comes up a lot in the conversations that we're having is the criticality and the need for action. And I think that is no different to the conversations that I have at home with other government ministers or actually with our communities. There is an appetite for action and an appetite for us to move from the what, which is the destination, which I think, we are absolutely committed around, which is net zero 2050 and our 2030 NDC targets. But the conversation absolutely now needs to be about the how and that journey and that pathway to get to that destination. And our population and our public in New Zealand are demanding clarity of that how. What are the actions? What are the milestones? And over what timeline will that occur? And Minister Bowen and I, Minister Bowen started it, but I use the same language back home now. I talk about the 72 months between now and 2030. And when you say it like that, it gets that ambition and aspiration and I guess the drive that we need to do to get to that point. So I think here to listen to our views, our Pacific neighbours, but also get clarity on the how we get to that destination, and very much looking forward to progressing that.
Thanks, Simon. Well, in terms of the question to me about what's the most important thing to get out of this COP, I think the most important question out of this COP is if not now, when? If we have the global stocktake, so that makes it, to me, the most important COP since Paris, with all due respect to the COPs that have come in between. And if we have the global stocktake, which will show us we're not on track, what do we do with that? Does it become a catalyst for action, or does it just become yet another road marker on the road to failure? That's the choice before this COP. We have plenty of reports telling us we're not on track. The IPCC gives us one every 6 months. But this is where we have an actual stocktake telling all of us delegates, heads of delegations, negotiators, it's not working. So if we ignore that at this COP, if not now, when? You're putting off to Azerbaijan or Brazil, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I have some quiet confidence that we won't, that we will actually have a successful outcome in the course of the next few days, but there's still a lot of work to do and there's still plenty of blockers to a successful outcome. But we're all working very hard for a successful outcome. So what does that mean? Well, it means how do we, to me, describe the future, or more particularly the lack of future, of fossil fuels in our energy systems? That's the key question. There's a lot of people of goodwill working on a way to get a good outcome on that, but there are plenty of obstacles we've got to overcome. And I do not yet know whether I'll overcome them. But that is the key, and that is the most important thing for me and for Australia out of this COP.
Thank you, Kalaflayatu from the beautiful Pacific. I am obviously Minister for Natural Resources from Niue, but I'm also the political champion for gender and social inclusion. So coming to COP, I like the question, if not now, when? We talk a lot about many things. So prioritizing what I want from COP for my people, it's all the agendas. We talk a lot about loss and damage, GST, finances. We just want action. We would like those who pledge to commit, because basically we are at risk. We are not sure how long we are going to be around. Our ocean we have sea level rise. Our oceans have acidification. We're losing out. We are basically just dying out in the Pacific. So I come to COP being optimistic that I will return home to my family in the Pacific and say, hey, we made some great progress. Here's the funds. Please simplify the financial processes, make it easy for us, because we can't come back next year to COP and talk about the same thing, talk about how hard it is to access. Thank you very much to Australia and New Zealand for always being there for us as our big brothers. And we will continue to do what we can for our people, for our women, our children. We haven't done anything wrong, basically, but we're doing a lot. Bringing our innovative ideas, like our ocean conservation commitments that we have produced in Niue, because we need to help ourselves as well. But we also need those who pledge, those who are guilty of bringing this burden on us, to please commit. We can't continue to come to COP and talk and talk and talk. Action speaks louder than words. Walk the talk. Meet us halfway. We already started anyway. We already started in Fiji, Tuvalu, Kiribati. We are suffering, please. This is all we want from COP, is commit to what you have already pledged. No distractions, no more talk. Please help us. Thank you.
Well, I guess my colleague said it all. But yes, I share the same concern with her. I'm not only the Minister of State, but I'm also the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Palau. And of course, when we first started up with the COP, the climate change, it was not political, but now it has to come to a political level to put our voice through to our partners outside of our region, to let them know that, yes, you have your pledges, commit, you know. No, how do they put it? Action speaks louder than words. And we've been screaming and screaming, we've taken action, but yet we still look at the word pledges. You know, like my President Whips in Glasgow said, might as well bomb us. If you're not doing anything, might as well throw a bomb into our country and then let's get it over with. Because we have been, every COP that we come, we do the same thing. We get progress, and then yet we get some setbacks. But over the past couple of days, I've seen some progress and promise from the EU. Yesterday, we met with them, and earlier this morning, in terms of the IPOS, which means the EU is also concerned about the oceans. But let's put it a step further. This morning, we had this afternoon, we also had a very good meeting with our colleagues from Australia and New Zealand, the AOSIS, the PCA, the Small Island States Group. And the same concerns we brought up, and we're very fortunate that Australia and New Zealand are the only development partners in the Pacific region that actually resonate our voice and our concerns. So again, I attach my concerns to my colleague from Niue. It's the same. You know, we come here, they say you go to a high-level meeting. But let me tell you guys something. The tide is getting higher and higher every year in our Pacific region. So I don't know how much higher level could we come to. You know, that's why when our president in Glasgow said, might as well bomb us if you're not stepping up to the plate to deliver. Because we've done our part, and we've been doing our part ever since. And I go home and I tell them, this is what happened. These are the results. And the question they'll ask is, how does it affect me? How does it impact my family? And how does it affect our very existence in our country? So again, you know, we just ask the partners to, you know, let's just eliminate the word pledge. Let's get right to it. No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Ministers, for those very powerful messages. Can you please give them another round of applause? I think, ladies and gentlemen and Honourable Ministers, the clear message that is coming from your interventions is the need for immediate action. The time for talk is over, and the fact is, as the ministers have pointed out, this is a lived reality for all of us who come from the Pacific region. It's a day-to-day reality. I know we come to these very expensive meetings, we spend a lot of time here, but there are people back home in the Pacific region who are suffering every day in terms of rising sea level, the impacts of climatic events. And so what we wanted to do as part of the next part of this program is to give you a snapshot of what it's like, as the minister was saying, when the tides are rising, when the sea levels are rising, how does it impact our small Pacific Island countries? And so we're very honored that we have today with us Ms. Naomi Mahiu from Tuvalu, who is also part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Tuvalu, and she is accompanied by Lisa Kingsbury from SPC, the Director of Communications. They've developed this very innovative 3D modeling concept, which shows the impact of loss and damage and sea level rise on Funafuti, the main island in Tuvalu. So I'd like to now first perhaps give the floor to Lisa, who will briefly introduce to you what this concept is about, and Naomi to actually take you through it. So can I invite Naomi, please, to come up? Please give her a hand.
Thank you, Honourable Ministers. It's a pleasure to be with you. Naomi will call you up in a moment to come and gather around the model, and those of you in the audience, please feel free to stand up and come in so that you can see the model. What we're going to show you is kind of three key things. One, the importance of really accurate science and data to inform the decisions that need to be made in the next decade. And this model is actually built on science and really accurate data. The other one is really how it illustrates loss and damage. We talk about tides getting higher and higher every year. In Tuvalu, sea levels rising 4.8 millimetres a year. So some of the baselines you'll see are 1990 baselines. It's not the reality that the country faces now. But then what does this look like down the track? And then the third key message is really thinking about how to operationalise access to funding and resources for loss and damage in ways that work for the region, as has already been mentioned. So I'll hand over to my colleague Naomi to take you through the model, and ministers, please come and stand by the model so you can see the modelling itself.
Thank you, Lisa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to come around the model as I'll showcase what's happening here. Don't be shy. It's all right, just gather around. Okay, cool. Perfect. All right, so what you're seeing in front of you, this is a part of Funafuti Atoll. Funafuti is our capital, the capital of Tuvalu. So here, we've chosen this part specifically because it's the widest part of Funafuti. We've chosen this because we've got the government infrastructure on this end. We've got our agriculture section, the runways here. We've got our piggeries. Got most of the settlements are in this area. We've got our hospital and our school here as well. So we've chosen, if we were to choose the whole Funafuti, it'll take up the whole room space. So we've just chosen this bit of Funafuti to show you. So what I'll be showing are the scenarios of sea level rise only. All right, okay, so the first scenario I'll show you is pre-sea level rise. This is a 1 in a 10-year event. So this is what you're seeing in a 1 in a 10-year event pre-sea level rise. This is like a Category 1 cyclone. This is at its highest tide, and this is just wave flooding from underground. This is just inundation. It's not overtopping. So on the edge, that's the coast. That's the coast, and here's our lagoon. So you can see that the side of the road are affected. They're flooding. Part of our infrastructure, they're flooding as well, and we've got a pond here. Some of the houses are in pink. There are minor impacts of sea level rise on those areas. So this is 1 in a 10-year event, pre-sea level rise. And now I'll take you to a 1 in a 100-year event of pre-sea level rise. You see that most of the airfield are affected. Most of the houses are being affected as well. Along the coastline, you'll see there's like darker blue, that's flooding on the coastline as well, and a little bit here at the lagoon side. So this is a 1 in a 100-year event. This is like a cyclone Category 5 event. All right, so now I'm going to take you back to the 1 in a 10-year event, which is the one that we saw earlier. And if we add 32 centimeter sea level rise, imagine a ruler, 30 centimeter ruler. This is the 32 centimeter. If we add 32 centimeters, this is the scenario that you'll be seeing. If you add 32 centimeters, 1 in a 10-year event, you'll be seeing this scenario of sea level rise. Most of this part of Funafuti are underwater, and you can see that these houses are unaffected. So this is where traditional knowledge plays a role on telling people on where to settle. So most of the people have built their houses on this side, so this is like higher grounds and a dry area rather than building their houses on that area. So this is a 32 centimeter 1 in a 10-year event. So what was a Category 1 cyclone that we see earlier? This is like a Category 1 cyclone in of 32 centimeter sea level rise projected to be happening around 2050. 2050. All right, now if we add 84 centimeter sea level rise, this is our scenario. It's a complete wipeout of Funafuti Atoll. And my house is somewhere along here, and it's red. It's already red. So the major impacts of sea level rises on the houses, if it's red, it's major. If it's pink, it's minor. But still, the message is clear, as you can see. It's a complete wipeout of Funafuti Atoll. The airstrip, there's no airstrip. And so the government have, under its Tuvalu Coastal Adaptation Program, they've developed a long-term adaptation plan. And what they've done is we've built a reclamation land on this side that we thought was the higher grounds. So we built a reclamation land over here for our adaptation measures. And that's what the government is. So we've just recently completed this project, which is last few months. And so that's what the government is undertaking to help Tuvalu adapt to the effects of sea level rise and Tuvalu. And this is just sea level rise itself. We haven't considered ocean acidification, wave flooding, or any other tropical cyclones. This is just sea level rise itself. And this is the impact. And this is projected to be happening around 2100. But we don't necessarily have to get here. These are just projections. But we don't need to get here, and that's our message here at COP. Reduce your carbon emissions, honor your commitments under Paris Agreement, because what's at stake, it's everything. We've lost our land, our survival's at stake, our agriculture here, food security is affected, our water security is affected, our culture is affected as well, and those are losing. As the tide comes in, bit by bit, taking out all our sand, on the coastlines, they're taking out our culture, our memories, and we don't want that to happen, and we definitely don't want that to happen to our future generation, and my house is already red, and I don't want that to happen either. So the message to everyone here at COP, reduce your carbon emissions, and help us get, let us small island states, like our Honourable Minister from Niue has mentioned, our access to climate finance is very important. And we need a simpler, not a complicated process to access this climate finance, because we need more projects to develop here in Tuvalu so that we can adapt. And we need time to adapt, because these are just a flat land. It's just a reclamation land. There's nothing there, and we can't adapt if more carbons are emitted, more cyclones, more natural disasters, whatever happens. But we don't know what's going to happen here, because we need time to adapt. But the time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Please, can we give Naomi and Lisa one more round of applause? What a fantastic job they did. So, ladies and gentlemen, honourable ministers, I think that is quite emotional for a lot of us, seeing firsthand how our young people are advocating on these issues and being a force of nature in terms of trying to make sure that they can raise awareness and advocate on these very important issues and problems that our Pacific region is facing. Thank you very much for that, Naomi. Honourable Ministers, that's a nice segue for the second part of our program, which is the final question that we can pose to you. This is to do with what are your key takeaways from this COP, and how can you translate that into tangible outcomes and meaningful action when we get back into the Pacific region and we go back home? So I'd like to perhaps go in reverse order, if that's okay with the Honourable Ministers, and begin with Honourable Minister Ataru, who I understand has to leave very shortly after this. But over to you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that presentation. That was quite very, how do I say, truthful. And what I expect to take away from this COP is I'm going back with some successes and some challenges that we've taken a step forward with our BB&J adaptation fund, but still there are other issues that need to be, to be discussed, and it's really difficult when you know how after seeing that presentation, everything that my colleague from Niue has mentioned, and I'm pretty sure all of our Pacific Island fellow brothers and sisters in the room, what we want to take back home is solutions and actions, not pledges and promises. It deals a lot more with our culture, our tradition, and our very existence. For example, one of our islands, if it in the next 10 years is underwater, will that chief of that village still have its chiefly purpose, value? Will these people be considered that people of that region that's not there? So I have to bring some solutions to my people. We're like all of us in the government, we're all accountable to our people. But will they still be there when I go to the next COP and return? And I want to go back with some positive messages to our people that yes, there are partners that are listening. It's not all that negative, but we still have a long road to go and we still have a lot of waves to ride. And I would like to thank Australia and New Zealand again, and our crop agencies who are always behind us and always before us to ensure that the voices of our people in our community, the voices of our governments are resonated in any international forum. Because at the end of the day, loss and damage is a very big impact for us. If there's typhoons, do I prioritize removing money from the school program to address people who have destroyed homes, or do I take the health budget? And we are not capable of doing that at this time. So partners have to understand the challenges that we have. Yes, for example, they come to Palau and they say, let's save the turtles. And they did a very good campaign, very effective. They went to the schools and told us young kids that turtles are our friends. So the kids go home and they tell their parents, don't eat turtles because they're friends. So we're saving the turtles, but the impacts and effects of climate change is not guaranteeing the existence of turtles in Palau again. Because you go back, turtles always lay eggs, their eggs at the same place where they were born. But the sea level rise that comes up causes erosion. When they come back, there's nothing there to lay their eggs. So when my colleague says action, those are the actions we're taking. I want to go back home and tell my people that yes, there are positive actions. There are positive partners who are looking after us, who are with us and share the same concerns. I had a colleague from one of the European countries that says the impact of climate change in Palau is equivalent to the climate change impact in my European country. Yes. So how we recognize, we realize that. So who gets to be eliminated first? Most likely us. So again, I thank Australia, New Zealand, and our partners in the room, as well as my colleagues from the Pacific, that we'll go home to have some positive words to our people, to have faith in us, have faith in our partners that they can help us. But every year we come, we take one step forward. I hope we don't get two steps backward. So, again, colleagues, I want to take home positive message to my people that yes, they can understand our loss and damage concerns. They've already did that. They understand our BB&J concerns. We've done that. But then, of course, fossil fuel is another issue. Other issues that tend to delay or impede our survivability, or our sustainability as well. So again, I would like to take this opportunity to say, thank you to the development partners, especially our close partners in the Pacific. Not only Australia and New Zealand, but also the crop agencies who are there to help us to provide such graphic information that sometimes you have to see something like that to really grasp what we're going through. So again, thank you very much, and I hope you guys get a chance to come to Palau before it goes underwater. Thank you very much.
Thank you to my colleague from Palau. Main takeaway, I guess, we're still talking. I haven't seen anything. We're still talking. One person asked me at a panel earlier on, what if we give you $1 billion? I nearly took a swing at that person because why are you saying that? And my response was, I will build a bridge to come to your country because it's big enough. You haven't changed any of your ambitions. I will get all the islanders to come and live with you. How about that? This is a question we ask, and this is a question we ask ourselves as governments in the Pacific. I am so glad, though, that one of the biggest takeaways that I have going home is that oceans is finally talked about, is finally prioritized at this COP. We're hearing a lot of talk about oceans, the impacts of climate change on oceans, because basically I have one island, just one, not two. If anything happens to that island, I can't drive to another island. I can't fly to another island because I have one. So going back home and telling my people and my children that something is moving, they were talking about oceans. I also want to go back and say, and here's the money they're giving us, or they have given us to help us. Thank you so much to Australia for what you have pledged and what you have announced. I know I can thank you in advance also for the rest of the money that is coming, because you help us a lot. Thank you so much. And I know New Zealand, COP27, you also made an announcement to the loss and damage and to help us. Really, I also want to thank you in advance. I thank all our partners in advance for all the assistance, for all your help, whether it's technical, whether it's monetary, whether it's coming to measure what we have lost, or just come to experience. We have programs for our children. I want to go back and tell them that the Daughters of the Deep, which is a program we teach them underneath the surface of the water, on how to live, how to collect, how to make sure that you understand the process of nature if anything happens. We teach them to come and feel, to think, to see, because reality for us, and this is reality, we were not going to be here if nothing changed from this COP or the next COP, but especially this COP. Last year, we traveled to Egypt, the land that we only see, speak, read about in the Bible, because we're religious people, and we all are. And I prayed to God when I came that something beneficial will be achieved from COP27. I'm here at COP28, still talking about loss and damage, still talking about the funds that are being pledged. Really, I want to go back home. I'm an optimistic person, and I really want to have something by, I think I'm leaving on Tuesday, and I'm expecting some really good news after all the negotiations and dialogue. And please, English is my second language. If I said anything that is out of place, I'm having to translate in my head from Niuean to English. But that language better reflect back on what we achieved, on what funds that we can take back to our people, and translate that into action for our people and to a language that is best understood by our people. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Well, thank you. I think we can all say your contribution was perfect in every word. Look, it's a little bit hard to ask or to answer what I think is the most important takeaway from the COP, because we don't know what they all are yet, and time will tell in the next few days. We certainly all hope we have plenty to take away in the final outcome, and I have some quiet confidence that we will, but still plenty of obstacles to get through over the next few days. In terms of what we know so far, though, what have we got? Well, we had a good first day on loss and damage. Now, we all know how important that is, and we've seen good figures coming forward, both loss and damage and the Pacific Resilience Fund. We were involved in Australia on the Transition Committee for the Loss and Damage Fund. One of our key requests, demands, was a certain percentage set aside for SIDS and the most vulnerable, because not every country is equally vulnerable in the developing world. And we're pleased we got that. We got agreement of a percentage. What we haven't got yet is the number that goes with that percentage, and that's key for us going forward. Getting agreement for a percentage is good, but there are good percentages and bad percentages, so that work has to proceed hopefully soon, and then we can assess how best, in consultation with the Pacific, how best we proceed with the Loss and Damage Fund. In the meantime, we've got the Pacific Resilience Fund, which is an idea from the Pacific, for the Pacific, in the Pacific, That's why we've doubled down on that. The goal is 500 million in total, so good start now. So far we've got 154 million, 100 million from us, 50 million from Saudi Arabia, 4.5 million from the United States. And obviously there's good opportunities to talk to friends who are interested in the Pacific within the EU and elsewhere to try and get to that 500 million soon. So that's good. The other thing is, of course, the pledge that 138 of us signed up for tripling of renewable energy and doubling of energy efficiency. That's a very good early start. We do not yet know whether that will make the final text. I hope it does. But there are some people who are trying to stop it making the final text. But that's important. Now, there's something we can work on. A tripling of renewables is easy to say, hard to do. We're doing it in Australia, in effect, by getting to 82% by 2030, which we will do, and we made big announcements before we came here about how we'll do that. But with that's a global pledge, so we need to work together. And of course, the Pacific's emissions are a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage. But nevertheless, it's also true to say that some of the hardest places to get an entirely renewable grid or a heavily renewable grid are the world's small islands, because you don't have a grid you can call on like we can in bigger countries. If it's not sunny in Sydney, it's probably sunny or windy in Melbourne, and we can draw the energy up. You don't have that possibility. We can help with that, and that's something we can work on together. It's also good for energy security for the Pacific. Relying on diesel being imported, etc., is a terrible, terrible outcome for energy security. We've seen elsewhere in Europe, most spectacularly, but for all of us, if you're relying on fossil fuels, that is an entirely insecure energy system. But no war, no crisis, no geopolitical issue can impact on the supply of sun to your islands. And I think there's more that we have been discussing bilaterally with Pacific ministers, and more we can do to work on that. If we are going to triple renewables, countries need to work together to do that. So that's two early outcomes. Hopefully there's a lot more out of the final communique text. But regardless, there are two outcomes of the early days, which we can work on together going forward.
Just firstly, want to just acknowledge the work, Chris, that you and your team have been doing in terms of advocating for the position as the leadership, in particular around the umbrella group, but along with the Pacific. We cannot do this alone, but the role in which Australia has taken in order to take a leadership role across this Pacific is hugely acknowledged, hugely appreciated. And I think the takeaway that I will take back to New Zealand in reflecting that, I'm 10 days into a new role and we've got a new government, and the critical element for our new government was us to be here to recommit and make very clear to our Pacific neighbours and our bilateral partners that we are absolutely committed to this journey and this destination. And the message that the public in New Zealand, and I think that's probably no different to all of us in our respective areas, is the appetite for understanding, so what is the action that we need to take domestically in order to play that? And that is very much going to be the domestic focus in terms of what do we need to do to reduce those domestic emissions obligations. And so that's pretty much going to be one of the key takeaways. I think the relinking of relationships, there's a lot of countries doing a lot of great things, right? And I think we talk a little bit about some of the challenges, but the opportunity, I think, is what we can also take from this. And I know that New Zealand, in conjunction with Australia and other countries around the world, we're working around, well, how can we better work together in order to execute our common goals and our common requirements, and whether that's through the doubling of renewable energy, or whether it's around energy efficiency or the phase out of fossil fuels and hard to abate sectors. Those are the conversations. I think the other aspect, just to touch on, is around the climate finance. And I think it's not necessarily something that we talk a lot about domestically, in a domestic context when we're out there at home, but the key role for us to advocate for simplicity, to remove the friction in the pipes of how money gets from where it starts from to where it needs to be to affect change. How do we remove those blockages and reduce the friction? And particularly in terms of our role to advocate on behalf of our Pacific brothers and sisters to help to unblock those pipes is something that I'm going to very much take home and look at opportunities to work together on how we do that. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Ministers. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, I think what you've seen today is, when I started this event, we said that sometimes the Pacific's voice is not heard. But I think this event proves, and also the work that Naomi and her team is doing, but also the interventions from our ministers proves, that the Pacific is being heard loud and clear here at this particular COP. What we're hoping to do, based on the excellent messages and interventions that our honourable ministers have shared, is make sure that our negotiators who are in this room, but also in the negotiating rooms, are able to capture these messages and forge ahead. I think, as Honourable Minister Bowen was saying, it's still early days yet. We've got a couple more days to go in terms of some of the final messaging that will be coming out of this COP to make sure that it's a rewarding COP. It's something that we can go back home and tell our people that we spent this time here, but we were able to make it productive in terms of some of the key outcomes coming along. And we're very appreciative in terms of some of the initiatives that the governments of Australia and New Zealand are funding. You heard about the Pacific Resilience Facility, which is the game-changing and transformative initiative that our Pacific Islands Forum leaders have agreed to in Rarotonga at the Leaders Summit a couple of weeks ago. But you also heard about some of the other initiatives around the champions. And I must acknowledge Minister Anu. I think she's the embodiment of a Pacific champion in terms of her intervention today. And for the first time, we have 8 political champions that are coming into this COP from the Pacific region, the highest number ever. The Troika of the forum, which is the Prime Minister of Tonga, Fiji, and also Cook Islands, who are also here. And that couldn't have been possible without the funding support of Australia and New Zealand in terms of this initiative that we have. And so, unlike previous COPs, and I know quite a few of you have been to many different COPs, we feel that this is one of the biggest COPs for the Pacific region in terms of sheer representation, but also in terms of how we are making our mark on the respective issues that our ministers have spoken about. So with that, please give our ministers a round of applause. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much. That brings this event to a close. Vinaka.